Hi everyone, my name is Emmanuel Johnson, Emmanuel F. Young Johnson, and I'm a researcher. I'm from Nigeria. I'm also a filmmaker and a poet. And I've recently completed my PhD program in education. My PhD looked at Nigerian student experience, looking at the question of what it means to be educated. And as part of my PhD, I made a documentary film which looked into experiences of Nigerian students in the UK? That's a good question, and I spent some time talking about it in my PhD. So in March, I think 2018, I was invited to work for a day at a role that I applied for, and it was a media production role. And I remember feeling really lost and isolated and alienated at the end of that work day. And that really surprised me because I felt like that was my dream job. And I couldn't really understand that experience. But at the end of that work day, I spent a lot of time thinking. And it led me to believe that I was meant to be in the academic world, at least for that period in time. And I was meant to do a PhD as well. And doing a PhD really provided me with an opportunity to reflect and look back on my own educational experience as an international student who had been studying in the UK since 2012 and ask questions based on my experience about what it means to be truly educated in UK higher education. Yeah, so it was like a camera operator role and editor. I had to go out and interview some people and come back and edit the interviews to be released on social media platforms. And though I obviously enjoy the process of camera operation and editing, I felt like that role lacked elements of philosophical inquiry, which I find to be really essential to who I am. I find that I'm someone who is prone to asking philosophical questions and prone to thinking about things like that. And for that reason, I just felt like I did not belong in that environment. So I would say that I made the right decision. And up until this point, I'm happy with the decision I made. I thought I would feel relieved. I thought I would feel excited. Now, this is not to say that I did not feel any sort of relief or excitement. It's to say that it was so much more than that. And I felt elements of exhaustion as well. It felt as though something significant and heavy had ended, and something significant and heavy had just begun. And for that reason, it took a lot of getting used to. And I guess because of the way I think and the way that I am, I'm prone to being inward and being introspective. So I asked myself questions again about what exactly I was experiencing at that point in time and what this new period of life that I was stepping into would look like, this post PhD phase of life. So it was not an experience that was merely exciting or happy. There was so much more to it. So what I expected was something a lot more, I would say, mindless, in the sense of I finish and I'm just happy and excited and I want to party and celebrate on end for an extended period of time. But what I experienced was much heavier than mere mindless excitement or a mere desire to celebrate. It was a realization of the fact that something significant had ended, and a realization of the fact that for the past 4 years, I've been working on something that meant so much to me, and it came to an end. And I had a new phase of life that I was immediately placed in due to the fact that I had ended the previous phase of life, and I had to make sense of this new phase of life and find new meanings within it and find a new understanding of myself as well, and have a new set of priorities too. I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. I think that's really important to mention because I was aware of the fact that a PhD is something that is really difficult to do, and it's something that not everyone completes. And at certain points, I would say I felt a bit sidetracked by the fact that I focused on the challenges of the PhD rather than the meaning of it and my reason for doing a PhD in the first place. And it was this meaning and reason that kept me fulfilled and actually created a lot of enjoyment in the PhD for me. So I would say I found the process really enjoying, not because I didn't find it difficult. I did find it difficult, very difficult. But even more importantly, I found it very meaningful because of the significance of my study and the significance of the point in time that I found myself between the periods of 2018 to 2023, considering the fact that COVID happened, NSARS happened, Black Lives Matter happened, and all sorts of events, both personal and public. And the PhD felt like an opportunity to bring together all of these significant events and express them in a single frame of meaning. And I just find that so beautiful to think about, and I'm really thankful to God for the opportunity. It's shown me that anything is possible, and I really have no reason to fear. I would say I feel more optimistic, more hopeful about the future, and I'm more confident as well about any sort of experience that is awaiting me in the future. I feel an attitude of excitement towards risk taking, and I would happily take risks in the future. Yeah, it definitely got difficult, especially I would say during COVID. When COVID started, I found myself feeling isolated. I couldn't go out. I love to walk. I couldn't really do that. Not really, for some reason. I think I had a fear of contracting COVID from some random people, or there were orders about not going out. I'm not sure what the situation was, but I just knew that I had to contend with myself every waking day, and I had to face myself every day. So it felt very isolating. It felt very difficult. For a period of time, I was unable to do any work. I pretty much had to put my studies on hold to focus on myself and my mental health and coping through passing days passing days that were passing on end. And that period was very, very challenging for me. And at some points, it looked as though it would be close to impossible to complete my PhD journey. But I'm thankful that those were only temporary experiences. And I'm also thankful to my friends and my family who supported me during that time, because they really gave me a reason to persevere, and they helped me with my attempts of perseverance. So I couldn't have done it all on my own. I just couldn't see the possibility of ending the PhD journey. It never crossed my mind. So despite the fact that I had difficult experiences, I also had a belief that these experiences were there for a reason, and were also temporary. For that reason, I was given motivation to persevere through these experiences. And as a Christian as well, my faith in God must be mentioned, because I believed that the experiences I faced were there for a reason, and were, in a sense, supervised by God. And having the sense that I was under the supervision of God gave me a reason to keep going. That's a good question. That's a deep question. How has it changed me? It's taken away an element of fear from me. I'm not sure what percentage of fear it's taken away, but I know it's taken away some percentage. I'm not as fearful as I was before. And I wouldn't say it's a foolish type of fear, that causes you to be reckless. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a kind of confidence that allows for you to go through any kind of situation with a sense of firm-footedness, knowing that you have the ability to stand strong and not be shaken. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm so thankful for this new addition to my life. I did not really see it coming. And I know that it will be something that will help me in future with more challenges that I will have to go through in life. So the PhD took a primary spot in my center of concentration. In addition to the PhD, I would say I was involved in some projects as well. So myself and 9 other Nigerians formed a group, a team called Niger Which Way, and we were active for a period of time. And I would say that complemented my PhD in a way, because my PhD was focused on Nigerian student experience. And I was, I've been writing poems since 2018, and I've been collecting them and putting them together as well. That was going on during the course of the PhD as well. So that contributed to the PhD process positively. And my sister got married, my brother got married as well, within a few weeks apart. I'm smiling now because I'm talking about my siblings and I love them. Well, yeah, they got married a few weeks apart, and that certainly contributed to the PhD, because I don't want, without giving too much spoilers away, it kind of made it into the film that I produced, which was part of my PhD. And my church activities, I volunteer at church a lot. I would say these activities contributed in a different sense, giving me a place to belong. And I had the opportunity to camp as well on 2 occasions, 3 occasions actually. And that felt surreal, being in a really beautiful green space, isolated from my busy life and surrounded by people of like minds. That felt so refreshing. And yeah, experiences with friends, visiting friends as well. Yeah, I can't really think of too many other experiences. So I'll just leave that those ones for now. Yes. I don't need to think twice about it. I know the answer. Yes, I would make it. I would do it over and over again because it's been that fulfilling. I I read my thesis. I remember reading my thesis after my viva, and at the end of the thesis, I had a smile on my face. And I don't know if that's weird. I don't know if that's countercultural, because I guess the more popular idea is, oh, if you read your thesis, uh, you might feel a bit weird because maybe you come across some mistakes or something like that. I'm not trying to say my thesis was perfect. What I'm trying to say is that I read my thesis and I realized its significance. I realized how much effort and time and dedication I put into it. I realized what it produced, and I felt very content and fulfilled and grateful for the opportunity to create that piece of work. So I would absolutely do it again. It's difficult to remember an actual event because the what next question has been on my mind almost since I started the PhD. The thought about what I would do next has been on my mind, and I've always had the same response to it, which is to do research. Because I love research because of the opportunity that it provides to me to discover something new. I love that. And for me, that's what research is all about, the discovery of new knowledge. So I'm not sure I had a defining moment where the what next question came to me, because it's something that kept on reoccurring over the course of my PhD. I tried to focus on what I had in front of me at the moment, and I tried to prioritize that above what I had in future, because I believed that if I was successful with my goals in the present, then that would allow for me to have a successful future. And I did not see much sense in feeling anxious about the future while ignoring my duties of the present. I would say that really helped me, and I also believe in the idea of there being a time for everything, which is a biblical idea. And for that reason, I knew that I had a time for my PhD, which I was currently immersed in, and I had to be faithful to that time to ensure that I got exactly what I needed to get from that experience. And I would say that I had a sense of trust in God that the experiences that were outside of my control, the experiences of the future, would turn out to be for my good, and that I would find a way to navigate those experiences I when I reached them. So that was my approach. So You're right in the sense that I've had to make a lot of sacrifice. I've had to give up a whole lot of things. I've had to earn less money the past 4 years, and that's very important because we live in a very material world. So I finished my PhD having less money than I probably how do I put this? I beg edit this part. I
No,
hate
no,
this
no.
type of
Think is
words.
good. You think is good.
Yeah, let's just say I probably would have more money if I didn't do a PhD because I would be working and I would have the chance to save more over the course of 4 years. Which is not to say that I couldn't have worked while doing the PhD, but my PhD was so intense that I had to focus so much on on the PhD, and focusing on anything else was a struggle for me, and it started to feel distracting for me. So the reward that has come with it has been very worthwhile. I think the reward that I will get over the course of my life will match the sacrifice that I've put in for the PhD. And the reason I believe that is because of the kind of question that the PhD asks, which is, what does it mean to be educated? Though it narrows it down to Nigerian student experience. In the PhD, I answer the question first of all, then apply it to Nigerian student experience. And I feel like that's a question that will always be asked. I don't think there will ever be the perfect answer to the question of what it means to be educated. And I also think it's a question that will always be relevant, irrespective of the cultural or social or political or economical context that we're speaking of. It's a question that applies to anyone who is interested in any form of education. And answering that question allows for you to structure your or plan your life, your studying in a way that allows for you to get the best out of education. And from the more personal aspect of the Nigerian identity and belonging, my PhD spends a lot of time talking about those things. And the question of what belonging looks like to a person who is of Nigerian identity will always be important. And I think more so now that more and more Nigerians are leaving Nigeria to study or live abroad, and the experience of being outside of Nigeria creates questions within you about what it means to be Nigerian and where you belong as an individual. It may not appear in those exact words. You may not get, because it's a philosophical question, you may not get the question of where do I belong. Not necessarily. It may come in the form of a feeling of alienation that you feel in your new environment, a feeling of nostalgia about where you've come from, what you've left behind, and what that means for you. A feeling of homesickness, culture shock, and how exactly you go about coping with your newfound environment and with the fact that you're no longer in Nigeria. Yeah, those type of concerns don't have an expiry date. They'll always be relevant. And for that reason, I can't think of any amount of money that I think I would give up to not have the PhD experience that I gained, because I am confident in the fact that the experience of doing a PhD and what my PhD was about is very much invaluable, not just to me, and not just to Nigerians around me, not just to Nigerians who are alive today, but to Nigerians who are to come. So and it's things like this that I believe inspire many people to go and do a PhD, and for that reason, it's a very worthwhile adventure. So this is me encouraging people who want to do a PhD. But by the way, before you do a PhD, think about the question of why you're doing it and what you hope to gain from it, and what kind of significance you hope to leave behind with that PhD. Because I would admit that a PhD is not for everyone. I don't believe everyone needs to do a PhD to achieve some form of impact. But I do believe that a PhD is a worthwhile way of achieving impact. What I remember is conducting interviews with Nigerians in the UK, taking these interviews, these files, these videos that I recorded, listening to them and editing them in the library, and thinking, wow, this is amazing, and just feeling speechless. I would say that was the point I realized that I stepped into something bigger than me, something that I didn't really understand how significant it would turn out to be. And the opportunity for people to express their feelings and express things that would otherwise, that may otherwise remain unknown, is invaluable. How much is that kind of opportunity worth, I wonder? So my PhD is bigger than me for that reason. And many PhDs are significant for that reason as well, because of the opportunity that it provides for new knowledge to be discovered. And I believe that new knowledge is invaluable. Enjoy it. I think you can deduce that from the things I've said so far. Write down your reason for doing what you're doing. Why are you doing the PhD? The advice is to someone who has started the journey. So you've already made that, you've already taken that step. So what's the reason for that decision? Why have you chosen to do a PhD? I'll say write your reason down and have it somewhere that you can turn to if need be. Lastly, but certainly not least, take notice of what you have in front of you. Don't lose sight of what you have in front of you. What do I mean by that? Well, the experiences that happen every day, and while you're doing your PhD, you have days that you go to the library if you're that kind of student, or maybe you're working from home or you're working in a research center, and those experiences look so ordinary. Every day you're doing the same thing, and for that reason there's a tendency to kind of take those experiences for granted because they're just so monotonous. But I would say that those experiences are significant because they add up over time to create something that is ultimately significant. What's ultimately significant is you finishing with that PhD and achieving that impact that you set out to achieve. So taking notice of passing days that appear to be ordinary will allow for you to achieve the goal that you have in mind ultimately. So that's what I would say. And I would say that all of the things I've mentioned help me complete my PhD and help me achieve the goal that I set out to achieve. It was special. This is what you really wanted. You got it. was worthwhile. You gave people an opportunity to express themselves. And that's something that was, and I hope will still be very important to you. And whatever you're doing now, I know that this experience allowed for you to be better equipped to handle the challenges that you're facing. And I would like you to remember that when things get tough and when you have reasons to give up and give in to despair. In a sense, the end is an illusion because you are still living. You're not really at the end. They say where there's life, there's hope, which pretty much means that the prospect of new opportunities is imminent because you're alive. There's a chance that something might just walk in through your front door and change your life forever. So you're not really at the end. And for that reason, you should observe, you should be more mindful about where you are presently, what's happening around you, and what all these things mean. Because I surely believe that there's significance in the present, in what you're experiencing, in the phase of life that you're in. So I can't really speak of the end because I'm not at the end. I'm still alive, and I believe that there's still more to my life than the PhD and all that I've experienced so far. So what I can say is that I'm alive, and that's it for me. I'm alive, and that's enough.
Cut. I don't want to see another word. That's the perfect word.
I'm alive, baby.
I'm alive, baby.